Well, the trade rumors, news, I don't know. We should just start a segment called Rumor Mill because, man, there's a lot going on in Blue Jays land.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasco. Carter First, too. Trying to get better at the Twitter this year, so make sure you guys do head over there if you have an account. If you don't, we have the Instagram and TikTok available at Locked On Blue Jays. We'll be getting hardcore back on both of those, the shorts, the reels, the whatever it else is called, TikToks, I guess, for the season. So your quick game recaps, what's happened, your big news, updates, storylines. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all those updates, as well as Twitter. If you want some just of our in-game thoughts, and we're sitting down watching the game, sometimes we'll be tweeting away, so make sure you head over there. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, make sure you do so. You guys have been killing it. You really have been killing it with the subscriptions lately, but you might as well keep going because we noticed still a few of you aren't subbed, so quite a few of you aren't subbed. So we'd appreciate that. It's free to do so. You might as well. And if you're listening anywhere else, make sure you head over to the YouTube page because we have made it sort of the hub where you can get your shorts, your videos, podcasts, news and updates, everything, live streams, anything like that. So make sure you head to the YouTube channel as well if you're listening anywhere else. Discord channels also, the link is in the description. Now that we're through all that, I'm gonna start making like a intro segment for this because I feel like we almost need it every episode. Welcome back to the rumor mill. Let's start it there before we get into the trade rumors surrounding Michael King, because that would be a huge addition for this Toronto Blue Jays team with 1 year of retention that would be left on Michael King. We'll get into all of that and more coming up, but let's start things here, Carter. News rumors. What's going on? Pistol Pete, what do you got for us today? One day you will see like a graphic with like a windmill or something. I don't know. I'll make something.
Yeah, we're back with the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. It's been a relatively quiet week for the Toronto Blue Jays with the Pete Alonso stuff. Really picked up last week, obviously, with a lot of reports coming out saying the Toronto Blue Jays are very close to landing him, could come out at the end of the day. Again, we kind of went into that last week of how much validity you can take with some of these reports. And lately, it's just kind of been stagnant. It's kind of been like the Anthony Santander situation up until, I guess, yesterday, with the Toronto Blue Jays having the highest offer, the seeming like Pete Alonso wanting to go back to the Mets with Anthony Santander again, seeming like he was going to go back to the Orioles, seeming like he might sign somewhere else. And then with the Corbin Burns stuff as well, Toronto Blue Jays having the best offer, kind of waiting up for the San Francisco Giants. And we had that going up until yesterday. And now we have some reports coming out that kind of the script has flipped. And Pete Alonso now has the highest offer from the New York Mets. But the problem with this report is we kind of have the same stuff that we were talking about on last week's episodes with how much can you trust these reporters? How much can you trust the reliability of these guys? So we have Andy Martino, who went out last week and said, I'm hearing that they're at the 10-yard line regarding the Toronto Blue Jays. I know from experience, those last 10 yards can have a lot of obstacles, but the Toronto Blue Jays are close in a signing. Then you have Baseball Night in New York, where Andy Martino goes and says there's no reason for the Mets to rush. The final Mets offer that Alonso has turned down, that is going to be tough for him to beat with the Toronto Blue Jays. They're pretty much saying New York Mets now have the highest offer. Toronto Blue Jays are going to have a very tough time matching that after the Anthony Santander signing. And you had a bunch of people, it was actually pretty funny on Twitter, a bunch of people calling this guy out in the comment section, being like, what happened to the 10-yard line? Was there a botched snap? Was there a 30-yard sack? How do you go from 1 week being, again, the leading favorites having the highest offer and kind of doing in this notion having to do whatever to land Pete Alonso, going to pay him a higher AAV to bring him into Toronto, and then all of a sudden going to the complete opposite side, saying that Pete Alonso there's no way the Toronto Blue Jays can match that with their payroll, with what they've done with Anthony Santander. Kind of this flip-flop, wishy-washy stuff. So at this point, it's kind of hard to see who is really in on Pete Alonso, who is the favorite on Pete Alonso, where the Toronto Blue Jays are at, where the New York Mets are at. I think I'll sum it up by saying this. It feels like he wants to go back to the Mets. It doesn't really seem like he wants to sign with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he would have done that already. Steve Cohen has come out and said that these negotiations are harder on him than the Juan Soto negotiations were on Steve Cohen. So obviously 2 sides not really meeting too much here, but I think Pete Alonso is sort of holding out for the Mets to at least match the Toronto Blue Jays offer. At the end of the day, we might kind of see it with the Anthony Santander, the Toronto Blue Jays having the highest offer, no other team matching that, and eventually with Pete Alonso coming to the Toronto Blue Jays. But if I had to put percentage marks on it, probably say at this point it's 70 to 75%. He's going to the New York Mets, and then you got 25 to 30% he signs with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, and all this is frustrating too, Carter, because we've also heard reports of the New York Mets going or saying to players that some guys are going to have to start taking reps at first base. And then you're right. It comes all back to the conversation that we had last week of how do you believe anyone anymore when it comes to these signings? And you can't. You cannot believe these guys because we've seen the script keep flipping. And it comes to a point now where I'm sort of just sick of it. And I said the Toronto Blue Jays have had a great offseason so far. And I think I'm happy with that. If that's what it is, I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that offseason. If they get Pete Alonso, even better. But I'm sort of done. I'm mentally a little bit checked out, and maybe some of you guys are as well. I'm just the wishy-washy flip-flop action going on social media right now. That I think I'm good either way. If it happens, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not that beaten up about it. I'm just sort of sick of it. I'm ready for the season to be here. I'm ready for action to start happening. But we'll keep you guys updated with, of course, anything if we hear anything more. And in saying that, there's always something to talk about because news and information and the rumors keep flying out there. Michael King is now on the trade block with coming off of a fantastic season last year. And we got to ask ourselves, obviously, the question is how does he fit with this Toronto Blue Jays team? Is this a possibility that the Toronto Blue Jays go out and make this trade? They were looking for a starting pitcher, obviously. Is this the guy that you want, Carter? If this is an option, again, like I said, only 1 year of retention after this or going into this year. So this will be the final year. Is this a guy that you're like, yeah, let's go in for him? Because that's about where I am.
How can you hate on Michael King? You saw what Michael King did in 2023 to the Toronto Blue Jays. That was a tough watch at the end of that season. But the Toronto Blue Jays in 2023 could not hit a baseball. Couldn't hit a beach ball, honestly. I just want to go back to kind of you were addressing the rumors with Michael King, things like that. There's a lot of rumors going around, not as much in the Toronto Blue Jays community. It's the New York Mets saying that, if we don't land Pete Alonso, we're just going to trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the contract talks are not even close with the Toronto Blue Jays. It almost seems like once they got Juan Soto, it's just like, they're going to get every single player that ever could have a rumor running them whatsoever. And maybe we're doing this a little bit with Michael King, but there's a lot more validity to the Michael King reports than there is to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rumors. Vladdy, why would you go out and sign on Anthony Santander? Why would you go out and sign or be in on Pete Alonso just to go and flip Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to the New York Mets? If you're a Mets fan, just take a little look in the mirror. Just think about the situation a little bit. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
They're not the Dodgers. No other team in the MLB is the Dodgers. You're not getting every single guy you want. Great. You got Juan Soto. Fantastic for you. You still got to build a baseball team around that. You still have to surround him with pieces. He can only get you so many runs. Juan Soto can only do so much. So, again, this is sort of, like you said, we've had conversations with a ton about free agents and who's going to make, be on this roster at the start of 2025. But it's almost delusional, coming from the Mets fan base here. And don't get me wrong, we were a part of that during Shohei Ohtani. We were a part of the delusion. But now, I think we've handled the Juan Soto situation pretty well as fans. I don't think anybody was like 100% sold that he was coming here. And then you get Anthony Santander, and I think we're sort of all back down to reality here. The fact that as Toronto Blue Jays fans, you're not going to get every guy. But Carter, I'll send it back to you, Michael King.
Absolutely. So you said you're kind of okay with how the offseason has went. I still want a starting pitcher. I still think there is need for depth in this starting pit rotation. You have one injury, then you have to rely on Jake Bloss. It isn't necessarily the worst thing, but you kind of saw how it worked last year when he got rushed into the major leagues with the Astros. Didn't exactly go as planned. And confidence is such a big thing in sports. If you ruin a young guy's confidence early on, might not work too well for them. But you might ask, oh, for completely dismissing these Vladdy rumors, why would you be in on Michael King? Where did these kind of come from? And it came from Ken Rosenthal. He reported that the Padres offseason is moving slowly due to ongoing trade talks among Dylan Cease, obviously, and then Michael King, who just came out recently. We're both going into their last year of arbitration. All the reports that I've seen, Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic, MLB trade rumors, multiple other reports have said the Padres are looking to cut some of their projected payroll in 2025 and beyond. Makes a lot of sense because they haven't really done anything this offseason. It almost seems like they have the Ross Atkins syndrome where he was asleep for the first half of the offseason. At least Ross Atkins woke up. Doesn't really seem like the Padres are going to do that, but maybe they will do that in cutting some of their talent rather than doing the opposite and trying to buy some talent to make another run. Padres still a good baseball team, but it looks like they are trying to cut some of their financial constraints going into 2025. This is similar to last season when they had Juan Soto, obviously in arbitration. Juan Soto doesn't have to really be a debate. He is one of the best players in all of baseball, but they wanted to cut the cost in payroll, did not want to engage in those contract talks. And obviously the arbitration was the second highest, or maybe it was, I think it actually was the highest MLB arbitration in MLB history. So similar situations there. There is reports that Michael King and Dylan Cease will be on the move. We'll probably end up doing a Dylan Cease episode down the road. But with Michael King, I think that is a more realistic option to start out. Michael King as well in arbitration. They were not able to avoid arbitration. They are going. Michael King wanted $8.8 million. The Padres countered with $7.325 million. So they are about $1.5 million off in that. So does Michael King want to come to the Toronto Blue Jays? Doesn't really matter. It has no trade clause. No matter what, this is one of those guys that doesn't matter if there is interest there. If the Toronto Blue Jays want Michael King, they can go out and get Michael King. There won't be another Corbin Burns situation. Thank God, honestly, at this point in the offseason. Not something that Toronto Blue Jays fans want to handle. But how good is Michael King? I'll throw it over to you, and then we'll go to our second segment.
Yeah, Carter, just a couple things to get into. I'll break down the stats, and then I want to go a little bit further into how his pitches look, where he's putting them in the zone, why he is effective. And I'll do that sort of to start out the second segment, but I'll give you a quick rundown on sort of the line he posted after last year in 2024. So a WAR of 4.2, 13 wins, 9 losses with a 2.95 ERA, 31 games. He had 173 innings pitched, gave up 17 home runs, 63 walks, 201 strikeouts, Carter. Now, this is something I always look at: strikeouts per 9, walks per 9, hits per 9, home runs per 9. Those are the big ones for me because that over a time span can tell you how good a pitcher is. For me, strikeouts per 9 was at 10.4, walks per 9, 3.3, home runs per 9 under 1. That's what you want to see from a starting pitcher, and hits per 9 it was at 7.5. Carter, great year last season. A guy that, like you talked about, I think that would fit perfectly in this Blue Jays rotation. Moving Yariel Rodriguez to the bullpen, we've talked about how important we think that is to have a very solid long relief option in the pen, and I think that is Yariel Rodriguez. So again, I don't necessarily think it has to be Michael King, but I think you need somebody that's proven themselves to be a good enough starter. Michael King is well above a good enough starter.
I think Michael King comes into this rotation. He's probably your number 2 guy day one. Debatably, even your number 1 guy, probably not your opening day starter. I think you still give that to Kevin Gausman, but you brought up 201 strikeouts. That was good for 10th in all of baseball. Just wanted to throw this in there. Yusei Kikuchi was number 8, our King. Unfortunately, we'll not be seeing him in the Toronto Blue Jays uniform next year, but I wanted to throw that in. Just going to get into some more advanced stats, and then we'll go into what pitches does Michael King have? How does he use them? How does he set up his pitch sequencing? How does he attack batters? But some more advanced stats. He had a 221 opponent average, 291 batting average of balls in play, 642 opponent OPS, 0.68 ground ball to fly ball ratio, and he leaves runners on base 75.2% of the time, so is able to get out of those jams. So a bunch more we want to get into Michael King. How good is he? It's obviously a pretty good pitcher based off the stats, but how does he fit in the Toronto Blue Jays rotation? What would they have to give up? And just overall, like how would Michael King fit into the Toronto Blue Jays culture? We're going to get into all that coming up.
Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm telling you guys, I have loved FanDuel. The betting in the NFL playoffs have been electric. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. I'm telling you, this is something you won't want to miss. They got great deals for you as well. They got great like boosted bets as well. So check those out. I know I've been scouring FanDuel waiting for a couple of the bet boosts, and I think they've already got a few of them on there. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and you will, if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Carter, just getting back into Michael King a little bit. I'll throw it to you first. Go over his pitch, his pitch repertoire, and then I want to get into a little bit of something I saw with just how he uses the pitches, how effective they are, and sort of where in the zone he likes to play, and how does that translate into his game.
Yeah, before I get into all of that, I just wanted to kind of go into my welcome to the MLB moment for Michael King. Obviously knew he was on the New York Yankees for a while, got better and better every single season. But this is where I realized that Michael King is a very good pitcher and might be a problem for the Toronto Blue Jays for years to come. Luckily, he was involved in the Juan Soto trade, traded him to the NL, so we didn't have to deal with him whatsoever. But back in 2023, when Michael King was facing the Toronto Blue Jays. Not exactly ideal, not what you wanted to see if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, because this guy absolutely dominated the Toronto Blue Jays at the end of 2023. I had one start where he had 7 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts. I just remember sitting on the couch watching this guy make Toronto Blue Jays hitters look silly, look like I was in the batter's box in some of these at-bats. 5 hits, 1 earned run, giving up 0 walks. Had a little bit more trouble in his second start. This was at the end of the year where he played the Yankees, and I think it was the Rays, and then the Yankees once again just unluckily had Michael King back-to-back starts in 1 week, so that was not very fun. But had a line of 6 innings pitched, 5 Ks, 5 walks. Walked a few batters that time, but again, Michael King made the Toronto Blue Jays hitters look silly. They could not get close to a baseball whatsoever. Had 0 earned runs in that start as well. And just going into his pitch repertoire, what he kind of has and what he would bring the Toronto Blue Jays in event of a trade. Yeah, those sinker, changeup, 4-seam, sweeper, and slider, throwing the sinker 27.9% of the time, changeup 24.6% of the time, 4-seam 24.1%. Sweeper 17.8 and the slider 5.6. So predominantly he is using the sinker, changeup, and 4-seam. The changeup and sweeper are his put away pitches with whiff rates of 36.2 on the changeup, and then the sweeper with 34.5. Really, what Michael King does to hitters is that he hammers lefties with the changeup. Loves going with that changeup to lefties. 567 of his 713 changeups were to left-handed batters, and throws more sinkers to right-handed pitchers to jam them, and also throws sweepers to those right-handed hitters to keep them off balance. I love what Michael King did. I loved and hated what Michael King did to the Toronto Blue Jays in 2023. Just continued to get better. Obviously, had a full season in the starting rotation, 173.2 innings compared to the year before, where it was around 100 innings. So I could think he's going to continue to get better. To get better, I think he's going to build on that season that he did have in 2024. Finished 7th in the league and NL Cy Young voting. I don't think it's a debate. Michael King is one of the better pitchers, probably a top 2 rotation guy on any team right now.
Yeah, Carter. And one thing I find interesting about Michael King when it comes to some other pitchers is the way he sequences pitches is a little bit different than what you normally see. A lot of guys will play the fastball to what would then be the sweeper or the changeup. But what Michael King does very well is he uses the changeup once in a while to set up the sweeper and vice versa, which is very interesting. His changeup is so deadly accurate. Wherever he wants to throw that changeup, that's where it'll be. He does not miss with that thing too often. And what he does is with the changeup sort of drops into sort of the, I guess, left quadrant if you're looking from the catcher on the plate, and that's where it is. But then he'll set up the sweeper and he'll jam them in, and which is a very interesting sequence of pitches because you don't see that. You see a lot of guys will play the fastball, then throw the changeup, or vice versa, throw the changeup and then come back with the fastball or the sinker or whatever it might be. It's super interesting to me. Again, I like to go over sort of there's little things that I pick up on when I go through Savant and Fangraphs and all these other things, and then I watch some little clips of them as well, and then that's what I find super interesting and ways that he can really mess up some hitters because you'd think this is a fastball count. You'd think he'd throw the fastball and he drops the changeup in on you, and then you think he just went to the changeup. This might be the sinker. Not so much. He'll throw that sweeper. You expecting or thinking that it looks the same as the changeup, and it ends up sweeping across the zone. Very, very interesting way of setting up these pitches.
Yeah, it's hard not to like what Michael King is doing just from a baseball fan standpoint. Obviously, if he is pitching against your team, not going to be a very fun experience. Probably going to be the typical Toronto Blue Jays game that we saw in at least the start of 2024. Those 2-1, 3-1 losses, maybe even a shutout if Michael King is on the mound. Obviously, this guy's a dog based off what we've talked about, the stats that you can just look at the eye test. Anything you look at regarding Michael King is going to be beneficial to your ball club. So he's going to, again, going into the season, making around, it's either going to be $7.325 million or that $8.8 million. So you look at free agency, you look at what the Toronto Blue Jays need. It's pretty well known. Starting pitching is a need for this team. So if you're looking at any of these free agents, you're looking at Jose Quintana, Jack Flaherty, Max Scherzer, anyone out there is going to cost you more than $8.8 million, of that being on the high side of arbitration. So if you're looking to limit the budget, which it doesn't really seem like the Toronto Blue Jays are doing right now, it seems like they're kind of going all out with obviously being over the luxury tax already. A trade might be imminent. There is an influx of middle infielders. And when you're looking at just based off talent in the free agency class now, I think Michael King completely outshines every single free agent left on the free agent market. Obviously, you're going to have to give up players to get this guy. You're probably going to have to give up some of your top prospects, some of those middle infielders that may or may not turn out to be good. But as we talked about pretty much every single time we talk about trades on this podcast, these prospects are prospects. They are not established in the major leagues yet. Michael King is established in the major leagues. You pretty much know what he's going to do for your ball club next season. You have a rotation of Kevin Gausman, Michael King, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, and then Bowden Francis with Alek Manoah coming back sometime in July or August. That is going to be a very fun starting rotation to watch if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan.
Yeah, Carter, just a quick thing. And again, this is where I bring up the rumor mill bumper here, because this is, again, coming from The Athletic. The New York Yankees could be in on Michael King as well. Now, what does that mean for the overall New York Yankee team? Why am I bringing that up? How does that affect the Toronto Blue Jays? Well, in this sense, the Yankees are slightly over the now fourth tier luxury tax projected. If the Yankees then go out and acquire Michael King from a trade, they would probably look to move Marcus Stroman, who has been talked about being traded for the past, I don't know, offseason, sort of into even last year. They were having conversations about it. So this is my thinking, Carter. You miss out on Michael King. You then need to get another starting pitcher. What would you think about bringing the Stroh show back to Toronto?
I don't want it at all. I want this guy a million miles away from the Toronto Blue Jays team. Not a good guy in the clubhouse whatsoever. It's pretty known amongst the clubhouse, amongst fans, amongst the ownership group, pretty much anything that is regarding the clubhouse, that all the guys love each other. There's really no hatred. And as a Canucks fan, I'm kind of sick of this in-house drama that is going on. Do not want this guy even within a million feet of the Rogers Center. And when you look at other pitchers on this team, I think that Yariel Rodriguez would be better than Marcus Stroman. I think when Alek Manoah comes back, he'd be better than Marcus Stroman. Would this be a good depth signing in theory, just for his talent on the baseball field? Probably. But again, when you got Marcus Stroman throwing 90 poo out there, it's not something that I'm going to be too happy about.
Yeah, and what was interesting here is that was the rumor, that the Yankees were going to go after Michael King and try to replace Stroman. Now, for me, the Blue Jays don't need a Michael King. Would it be great to get a Michael King? Yes, absolutely. The Blue Jays just need a depth pitching signing that can push Yariel Rodriguez to that bullpen. That is my end goal for this offseason. Obviously, getting Pete Alonso, great. Getting Max Scherzer, unbelievable. Michael King, great. But looking at this realistically, with a ton of other teams now going to be looking at Michael King for a trade option, and I wonder what the Toronto Blue Jays would have to give up and what I would be okay with them giving up for 1 year of Michael King. I think that's what the biggest conversation is going to be here. What do the Blue Jays have to give up, and what are we personally as fans willing for them to give up for a year of Michael King? So, Carter, I think let's take a quick break. We'll come back. I want to hear, we know we've both sort of thrown in some trade possibilities. I've had to rework mine a little bit, but it's pretty much still there, and there's going to be some differences. I know me and you are going to have a little bit of an argument on this one, but stick around. We'll get into what the Blue Jays might have to give up for a player like Michael King. All right, Carter, hit me with yours. I want to hear it. I think we're close. We're close in the same ballpark within the same players. I think we both understand the players that the Toronto Blue Jays would probably look to move on from instead of, some of their other guys. So I believe my two, I know one of my guys is in yours. I don't know about the second one, but let's have a conversation here. Who do you got the Toronto Blue Jays giving up for Michael King?
So I loosely based my trade proposal off of the Corbin Burns trade. Obviously, Michael King is not Corbin Burns, but again, when you finish 7th in NL Cy Young voting, the price is going to be fairly high. So in that Burns trade, they traded Joey Ortiz and DL Hall, both being one of the Orioles' top prospects. Joey Ortiz having a 237 average, 727 OPS in 142 games with the Brewers, while DL Hall was not as good. Appeared in 13 games through 43 innings, a 5.02 ERA, 2-to-1 walk ratio. But again, he is a younger guy, both of them younger guys, around 26, 25 years old. That's kind of what you're planning on trading away in these one-year deals. And that just goes to show that it is only a one-year deal at this point. He is a UFA in 2026, but you're going to have to give up a decent amount for a player the caliber of Michael King. And if they are going to make this trade, I think there has to be this decision that they are going to try to extend him in after this 2025 season. You have Chris Bassett coming off the books, probably not going to be coming back to the Toronto Blue Jays. That frees up $21 million that you could put towards Michael King. Maybe you sign him for a 5-year deal. Again, when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays being in on all of these starting pitchers this offseason, with how good the starting pitcher market is next season, Michael King is going to have to compete with a lot of good pitchers on the market, Zach Wheeler being one of them. So I think this wouldn't be the worst idea for the Toronto Blue Jays to explore a trade for Michael King, but I have two here. One of them is Aurelvis Martinez and Adam Mako. That is, again, pretty big pieces to be giving up, especially with Aurelvis Martinez. I'm a huge Aurelvis Martinez guy. If you want a guy like Michael King, you're going to have to give up a lot. And my second one is Aston Barger, Cal Steven, and Deshaun Brown, obviously going back over to the San Diego Padres, and we would get 1 year of Michael King. This guy immediately makes this team so much better, probably makes this team a contender, honestly, to win the AL East. A lot of people are going to say they still need bats, still need this, still need that. After that Anthony Santander signing, right now, my major need is starting pitching. If they can get a starting pitcher, obviously of Michael King's caliber, that would be massive. But honestly, any sort of starting pitching guy that can add depth to this rotation, going to help them greatly. I don't think if you had Nick Pivetta, this makes this a contending AL East team. But if you had a guy like Michael King, and you have a good season from Kevin Gausman, good season from Jose Barrios, Don Francis continues to make those steps, and you got Michael King in there as well as Chris Bassett, maybe as being your number 5 guy by the time the season is over. That is going to be a lethal rotation, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the Toronto Blue Jays hopefully be a whole lot better than they were in 2024.
Okay, Carter. So hilarious. Two of my guys, or one of my guys, sort of, you've brought up. One of my guys was Adam Mako originally, and I was going to put Adam Mako and Alan Rodon for Michael King. Don't know if that would have been enough. You sort of mentioned it. So I either have those two or Addison Barger and Alan Rodon. I think Alan Rodon is my guy that they would part ways with. But I could see Mako and I could see Addison Barger. Would I be okay giving up Mako? No, not for 1 year of control. I think there would have to be an understanding of a deal in place with this as well for me to move on. I just don't know how I feel about a guy with a 1 year control willing to trade up some bigger time prospects with the Blue Jays already lacking so heavily within the prospect pool. Alan Rodon, I'm okay with. Addison Barger, I like Addison Barger. For me, he's had his time in my head. If you have to move on from Addison Barger, I love the guy, but I think he would be the number one. And I think in every trade that we've gone over, he's been somewhat a part of something because we realize that he still pulled some value as a possible major leaguer, but doesn't necessarily fit the mold of what this Toronto Blue Jays team will eventually be and will need to be with prospects moving forward.
See, I'm not on the prospect hugging fence whatsoever, unless it's those Roman Anthony's, those Dylan Cruzes, those Jackson Holidays, those guys that are at the top of these prospect rankings. Adam Mako has been good, but he's had some injury concerns. Probably won't be with the team until next season at the earliest. If you want to compete right now with so much uncertainty with the Toronto Blue Jays, with Vladdy not being extended, Bo Bichette, obviously Kevin Gausman being gone in 2 seasons, just so much uncertainty, and with, like you said, a bad prospect pool already. So are you really going to protect some of these guys that don't even necessarily compete with some of the top prospects among the league? And the reason that you're going to have to give up so much for Michael King is exactly what you said. New York Yankees being in on it. Multiple other teams are going to be in on Michael King. So you're not going to be able to give away some of your prospects in your prospect pool that isn't nearly as good as some of the teams around the league to get a guy like Michael King and a guy that has the talent of Michael King.
No, and I agree. I'm not necessarily as on board with going after a guy that we're only going to have for 1 year with, like what you talked about, some of the guys coming off the books possibly next year. You want a guy that you probably have some control over for the next 2 to 3, 4 seasons, ideally. So for me, I just don't know about giving up pieces for a guy that there's going to be a lot of trade buzz around, where you could pick up a little bit lesser of a free agent, but still make that work. So I'm a little bit not all in on this trade. I think, again, it would be great, but I think it would have to come along with some term that you figure out a signing and get that done as well. I don't think I would be okay if this is just a one and done year with Michael King and you happen to give up things when you could have got somebody worse, but still feasible for this rotation in free agency. So I'm a little bit on the fence, sort of in the middle on this one.
See, like we could talk about the trade speculation. We could talk about Michael King being a Toronto Blue Jay, but realistically, are the Toronto Blue Jays going to get Michael King? Are they going to be the top suitor for Michael King? Probably not. We're probably just talking about rumors. We're probably just throwing speculation into the air for not a good reason. I think realistically, if this Toronto Blue Jays team is going to add to their starting pitching, it is probably going to be the likes of Nick Pivetta. It's probably going to be the likes of a Lance Lynn. I don't think Jack Flaherty would even be a guy that they would be considering right now, unless contract negotiations completely stall out and we kind of get to this area where we're at the early March, maybe even the middle of March in spring training. Jack Flaherty still doesn't have a contract. Maybe they throw him a 3-year, 2-year deal for a little bit lower AAV. And at that point, we've seen how pitchers react, seen how players react to not having a full spring training. So at that point, can you write off for Jack Flaherty for at least the first month of the season? I would probably lean more towards that than him being the Jack Flaherty that we saw with the Los Angeles Dodgers at the end of 2024. But again, it is all speculation. It is all rumors. That's the fun of the offseason. Technically, anything is possible right now. And you see rumors like this, we figured that we would want to talk about him, especially with the history that he has had with the Toronto Blue Jays organization, how dominant he has been with the Toronto Blue Jays. So let us know how you feel about the possibility of a Michael King trade. Would you want to see him in Toronto? Would you be okay with giving up some of the top end prospects on this baseball team to have 1 season of Michael King? Maybe there is an extension, but again, who knows with this front office? Who knows if Ross Atkins will even be the one giving out that extension? A lot of uncertainty with the Toronto Blue Jays. And where I'm at, I'll leave this as my final thoughts. You have 1 year of certainty. You have 1 year for sure of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You for sure have 1 year of Bo Bichette. If you're going to go all in, if you're going to go way over this luxury tax, you might as well go all in, give up some of the prospects, and get Michael King, who's going to be very fun to watch in 2025.
I agree with you on that standpoint. I think this is the year of all years that you have to make something happen. And I think we've seen Ross Atkins making a good effort towards that. I think he understands the position that he is now in. This team is in, this organization is in. So yeah, we'll see what happens. The Michael King thing obviously comes up, and we have to talk about it because one of the needs of this Toronto Blue Jays organization was starting pitching. And something that we've focused on for the past couple of weeks now, and especially you have said that you want a starting pitcher. I'm not as high. I would still like one. I want the bat first, personally. But it's where we're at. We'll have to see what sort of plays out over the next few weeks, because then pitchers and catchers report, everything starts to ramp up and decisions need to be made. That's why I could see in the next week or so, and again, the last time I said this, it was literally the same day. The next week or so, I think you got to look out for that Pete Alonso signing, and you have to look out for the Max Scherzer signing as well. So I would, keep posted to our Twitters. If anything does happen, we will be posting on there, and we will be going live if it happens to be the Toronto Blue Jays. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you for our Friday episode.